Hello and welcome to the show. So, of late you guys know that I've been doing lots of authors and looking at publications, trying to understand some of the things that's been happening in and around South Africa. Part of that is looking at cultural diversity and the demography of South Africa and the history of that demography. I've got Raj Piley here. I'm in the Durban studio at the moment, as you can see, and we're talking about a publication called the Indian Natal. Now, Raj has authored quite a few books, and I think it's up to 8 of them, I think, and they're all in different genres. But today we're going to talk about the Indian Natal, some of the history of the Indians here and their contribution to South Africa as we see it today. Raj, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Now, just before the show started, I know we started having a conversation about some of the things our viewers are going to hear on the show, and that was very interesting. So I want to sort of keep that temperament and find out more about what you have to say. But to understand your publications and the context of your publications, we need to understand who Raj Piley is. You seem like a man with lots of history, a person that is dedicated to what you're doing, and someone that's very distinguished in what you're doing. Tell us about Raj Piley.
I am just an unknown person in the country, but I've done quite a bit of work. My first encounter with, firstly to start off with, my family were all involved in politics. They were passive resistance people, and they believed in fighting for democracy.
So was this through your childhood stages that the politics was sort of coming into the home already?
Exactly. We were living in Bel Air, and number 13 was our house number. That apparently was the first CPSA headquarters in South Africa. CPSA, the Communist Party of South Africa in those days, was the headquarters. R.A. Piley, Dr. Naika, and Kesavel Munsami, and people like this, Dr. Dadu, and so on, have been the people, the forerunners of the freedom that we have today, is by those people.
Great.
Not by the Maibuyas.
No, of course. So you see your interest in all of that and witnessing the history of South Africa as it's happening from your childhood days.
Exactly.
And that sets the tone going forward. The interest starts. And
well, I have been in prison for so many times, in so many different prisons. I've been in 15 different prisons in South Africa, and those prisons I have really served. And I had 15 years, almost 18 years of my life in prisons.
Is this because of political issues and
various other issues? Political and various other issues. I have been a fighter all along. I've never carried a pass or a permit to go to Cape Town or Johannesburg. I always defied it. And I went, and I stayed many years out of Natal. And it was absolutely wonderful to see these special branch running around looking for you while you see them right in front of you.
I know at one stage you stayed in Cape Town, in Boerkap, near the cannon, hiding away from the police, coming out at night only. Tell us about those days.
Those were hard days. The pylons were falling. You know, the pylons in Cape Town fell. Many of them, thousands of them, fell all over. That was our job in the night. We had to do it and get away. And I must thank the noon guns for the beauty they gave us, shelter and so on. We stayed in noon gun for quite a few months.
Raj, you are of Indian descent, and I know before the show we spoke about this. You see the intrinsic link and contribution of Indians in South Africa to the struggle, to the freedom that we enjoy today, and you see Indians as a pivot to all of that. Why do you feel that way?
Well, they have served the community. They have served South Africa as much as South Africa was a divided country. They served the sentences. They were put into jail and came out of there, went back, and some of these guys went 15, 16 times to prison. those Indian comrades that ran the foreshore of the struggle. The Natal Indian Congress was one of them. And Natal Indian Congress and the Transvaal Indian Congress worked very closely together. And they have really went. But some of the members of the Transvaal Indian Congress and the Indian Congress have become people that have went for money and diverted from the way we were working.
Correct, yes. So I have a feeling, and you may correct me if I'm right or wrong, but I have a feeling that you've been through that, through the trenches, and understanding the positioning of and the role that Indians played within this democracy that we see and enjoy in South Africa post 1994. Did a part of you say perhaps that that is not being seen, that it's being overlooked, or that it's being ignored? Because, and is this book precipitative of that?
Well, this book gives you a very clear indication what the Indians have done, how much they have contributed.
But did you feel that it was being ignored? The contribution was being ignored?
Absolutely
Hence the
ignored and
book.
kicked out of the back door. They are not known anymore.
Do you think that was engineered, or is that just part of the way forward?
I think, in my personal opinion, it was engineered.
But why?
Why? Well, the Indian was very progressive man. Community, the nationalist government didn't like them, and the blacks, certain blacks, didn't like it. And if you take the 1949 riots, you will see what was done there was not human. Indian women were raped, children were raped, people were chopped to death in pieces. So how much of human dignity did they have for the Indian community if they did this? But do you think the riots was something that just started by the blacks? No, the blacks and the Indians lived side by side. They shared the same loaf of bread or piece of bread together.
I remember before the show you told me about this aspect where people lived together and there was no distinction between Muslim, Hindu, black. Everyone was working towards this one goal, and that's the struggle.
That's a struggle we all work for, and that's the only struggle we know. We don't know any other struggle, because the Indian, the African, the Muslim, the Hindus all work together and live together side by side. The rich one lived with us and we lived with them. So where does the present division come about? That they are Muslims, there are Hindus and there are Christians.
Raju, you obviously, we understand that this is where the Indian Natal was born, in terms of a collation of data, so that this data can be presented to the current generation and future generations, documenting all those little incidences that has happened through. When I scan through the book just briefly, I see lots of pictures, and you're going from social matters to political matters, and documenting lots of protests and riots, and who was involved and when they were involved and all those kind of things. Tell us a bit about putting this together. It seems like a task and a half.
Yes, it was a big job. I didn't think, and many times I thought this will never come about. If it wasn't for the assistance of my wife, Kogi, who has given me all the support and has corrected me many times that what I have written is not what we should put, because it was not in the factual reality. After doing the research, we came to the conclusion the book must see a certain direction as far as the light is concerned, to bring about the reality of the Indian involvement in South African politics. And this was the reason. We didn't say Muslim, We didn't say Hindus, we didn't say Christian. They worked as a goal together. Where was Dr. Dadu? Who was he? He was a Muslim. Who was Monty Naika? A Hindu. So like this, we worked as a collage of people together and we presented situation. So today, there is no such thing as a division. It's a division created by the government.
Correct, yes. So, someone walking by the shelf of a bookstore, for example, sees the book lying down there. What do they expect to see as a reader, in summary?
Well, the Group Areas Act was a very huge situation where hundreds of thousands of Indians were taken out of their homes and dumped into places like Chatrut, like Walbinat, like Shalkos. They had beautiful homes. They lived in the center part of Durban, and they were all moved out. This must be something that touches every Indian of present day and past day, that these were the realities of people by hatred created by the whites. Then we have the Durban riots. We had two major riots, one in Phoenix, 1948. No, 1949 was Durban riots. That spread throughout the country. And then we had the Phoenix riots, the Nada riots, where the Indians then again were persecuted 10, 20 years later. They were again hurt and badly bruised from what they... The Indian never lifted their arm to fight back, retaliate. There was no race riot. This was not a race riot. It's a one-person riot. That was a blacks' riot combined with the whites.
Correct, yes. So effectively you document various aspects within history. You're talking about the riots, you're talking about the Group Areas Act, and certain major catastrophic events that happened down the line that defined who we are as Indians today in South Africa.
Yes, the passive resistance campaign, the defiance campaign. These are major parts of the Indian work.
I noticed one thing, that going through the book, one sort of sees these images, and under those images are a sort of write-up of what's kind of happening there at that time. How do you come onto that information? I understand that there's research involved, but how does one dig that deep into something?
There's very little information now available that we didn't touch. We touched everything that there is. If you look carefully back into the Diaconia Church, they had a place there where the history of the Indians were kept. Where are they now? There is no such place. Documents have all gone into Carlisle Street in Durban, and they are not available either. This book will be found in every library in South Africa.
How do you contextualize the demography of the book with regards to the regional aspects and the situation of Indians as people in South Africa, from the point of view that we have Indians now in Cape Town, a huge number of them in Johannesburg, and then obviously in Durban, I think the biggest diaspora perhaps of Indians are sitting there. How do you link the balance of Indians up that also played a role?
The biggest population of Indians, other side India, is in Durban. Then comes Johannesburg. We have something like 70,000, 80,000 in Johannesburg. Then Cape Town, I think we got about 20,000, I think, something like that. Then we got East London and Port Elizabeth. We have Indians all over the place. You could go into the most remote part of South Africa. You will find Indian business servicing the community.
So there's my concern. Do you negate the Indians from around the country, because your focus is more on the Natal side?
That's only the beginning. There is another book being planned, which will be a South African Indian.
Okay, so that would be
800 pages.
So that will take the information from this and then take that on a national level
Exactly.
and understand all of that.
Exactly. There's a lot of things happening in Johannesburg. You know, Fordsburg, how the Indians were kicked out of there. Fitas,
Yes, correct.
right? Taken into the open land in Lenasia and dumped there by the military cops. Like that, all those things will be documented. District 6, how many Indians were in District 6? Lots. Where are they now? Faded, complete, thin air. So like that, we have to categorize and bring all this information into the South African book.
What was interesting for me is I noticed that you mentioned latest contemporary figures that might have passed on, luminaries that lived in the Natal area, like Sayed Bhai from Riverside. They've got a long history in our community in terms of what the Sufi family has done there. Our CFO's son, Hassan Jogi, are sort of contextualized and brought to life in your works. How and why?
These were the people that made Natal popular. And there are people like that all over South Africa. Not necessarily Muslim, not necessarily non-Muslim, but there are people of Indian origin that did what they did. In Natal, they have found them there too. So the Jogis have done very, very much, and they are still doing it. Assam, for that matter, does it even today. He is servicing a major part of this country in Natal, helping the poor, helping the needy. He is there and he sees to it. What must we do about people like this? Aren't we going to publicize and tell people that they are doing it? So must it be put underground? Because somebody tells you that the Indians are not doing enough now.
Raj, that's the next section I want to get into. We're going to go for an ad break. So we understand why the book has been written and how interesting that might be to you from a historical point of view and understanding the position of Indians in South Africa. When we come back from the break, we're going to talk to Raj about what he thinks of Indians in current day South Africa in relation to the current government and their thoughts on how all of that plays out and what we see happening in the future in South Africa.